You know, Trudeau's consistent about one thing. No matter the promise or the policy, he will always do the exact opposite of whatever he promises. He says he's a big feminist, but he threw Jody Wilson-Raybould under the bus and got himself all caught up in a groping scandal. He says he's progressive, but you know what? He's worn blackface so many times, he's lost count.
How can you not remember that? The fact is,
He promised accountability and ethics, but he himself has been charged with ethics breaches over and over again. He said he'd have a couple of small deficits, but he's spent your tax dollars more than every single other prime minister in Canadian history combined.
You'll forgive me if I don't think about monetary policy.
Everywhere you look at Trudeau's record, you see the same pattern over and over and over. It's part of the Liberals' playbook. So is it any wonder that they're doing exactly the same thing now with their just transition? And I want to get into that. But first of all, let's talk about consultation. Trudeau came into office nearly 10 years ago, and one of his main promises, besides electoral reform, another broken promise, was a commitment to consultation. It's pretty straightforward. All that means is involving the people in the decisions of their elected representatives. So let's look at what Trudeau's actually done on his commitment to consultation. For the last year, the Natural Resources Committee in the House of Commons has been studying this concept of a just transition at the request of the NDP-Liberal Costly Coalition. So the MPs on that committee heard from 64 witnesses and received 23 written submissions from Canadians everywhere, all over the country. And it's expensive to run committees. We're talking about millions of dollars. It's all at considerable expense to taxpayers. So after all those meetings and all those consultations and all those Canadians who tried to be heard, it didn't matter. They put forward the bill before the committee had even issued its final report and recommendations. It didn't matter. The Trudeau Liberals were going to do what they were going to do. And like they do about everything, they're just playing lip service to democracy. And you know what? It's a slap in the face to every single Canadian. So when they say consultation, they really mean the opposite. They actually mean they're just going to do whatever they want to do. So let's take a look at what the Liberals pushed through. I did do a whole video about this before on the Just Transition. There's a link below, so check it out. In a nutshell, this whole Just Transition thing is right out of Justin Trudeau's playbook. Of course, he calls this plan just, but it will destroy, literally destroy, millions of jobs in the energy sector, in construction, in transportation, in manufacturing, right across the country. That doesn't sound very just to me. And you want to know how you can tell that Trudeau is saying one thing and doing the exact opposite like usual? Because when they brought forward the bill, one of his ministers, actually a good old friend of his, slipped up and admitted the truth. He said, "I know some people may look at it cynically that we've rebranded, that we no longer call it Just Transition." And he said, because anytime I stand up in front of a crowd of workers and say the words Just Transition, it has become so highly politicized that they get whiplash. Their heads go back so fast. Yeah, Minister, they do get whiplash, but not because of politics. It's actually because each one of those oil and gas workers know exactly what you're doing. And you're so blinded by your ideological agenda that when Canadians actually react negatively to the fact that you want to destroy their jobs, you don't make changes to the bill or consider amendments. What you're worried about is the title. They know you're doing exactly the opposite of what you say this bill does. And that's what you always do. And I have a special message for the Trudeau minister who's responsible for this. Canadians know Trudeau's anti-energy, anti-private sector, anti-democratic, Ottawa knows best, central planning agenda is going to cost them their jobs, no matter what fresh branding or new spin the Liberals put on it. It's going to hike the cost of living. It's going to leave entire communities behind, just like their failed coal transition. And it's going to leave Canadians in energy poverty. All of that means less innovation, less environmental protection, less revenue for governments, and a lower standard of living for all Canadians. That's the exact opposite of some good faith, altruistic, well-intentioned government job and skills training program. Once again, it's the exact opposite of what they say they want. And no matter what they want to call it, their plan doesn't include any details. It doesn't include any costs. It doesn't show how they're going to replace the millions of jobs they're going to destroy. Never mind the billions of dollars that the oil and gas sector pays to all levels of government every single year for social programs and services that Canadians count on. And anyone who really cares about environmental protection, about clean tech, about emissions reductions, should actually support the Canadian oil and gas sector, not try to end it. Instead, the NDP-Liberals want to end oil and gas in Canada, and the gap's going to be filled by dictators and hostile regimes that don't have anywhere near the standards that Canada does. Canada should be the world's energy producer and supplier of choice. And the Canadian government should actually be working to ensure Canadian energy self-sufficiency and security. But this is Trudeau's playbook. Whatever the policy is, whatever the laws, whatever the promises, he just does the exact opposite. And look how that's working for everybody else. What Canadians need is the exact opposite. The exact opposite of high taxes, the exact opposite of high prices, the exact opposite of anti-energy, job-killing, anti-private sector policies. What this country really needs is the opposite of Justin Trudeau. The opposite of Justin Trudeau is Pierre Poilievre, and he's going to bring home lower prices, lower taxes, and more energy jobs. The fight against Justin's transition is just getting started. We need your help, and we won't back down. And as always, thanks for watching.